The next day, he had told his sisters to go to school, gave them his last cash to buy food or snacks as there was nothing to eat at home. Emily, sensing he had no other money on him, tried to give him back a little, but he insisted he had money to eat. When she demanded he show her, he told her the food vendor was still owing him, so he will use the change to eat. They all left for the day's activity, and fortunately, he had so much favor that day that all the jobs he did paid him handsomely, enough to cover for Emily's exam fee and get small foodstuff for them to eat when they come back from school. But there was still the issue of the rent and Chi-Chi's school fees. But he was very grateful for the reprieve that had come. He believes Emily's exam was more pressing than the other two. And look, he has the money to pay now. If that is not a sign, somebody should tell him what it is. With the immediate crisis averted, Edward paid Emily's fees and began working tirelessly to gather the remaining funds for Chi-Chi's school fees and the rent. He pleaded with Chi-Chi to stop going to school for the meantime until he had gathered the money. He took on extra work, often working late into the night, pushing his limits further than ever before. It was exhausting, but he faced each day with unwavering determination, fueled by the hope and promise of a better future for him and his sisters. Another reprieve came when he came back that day, and Emily informed him that the school owner, Mr. John, wants Chi-Chi to resume school. He can pay up whenever he can. Though he knows Emily was not lying, but the next day he followed them to school to confirm, and it was such a wonderful surprise for him. He thanked the man profusely, and when he was about to leave, Mr. John called him back and said, "I don't know what your story is, and why you are responsible for your two sisters at such a young age, but I want you to know that it will not always be this hard. If you don't give up, if you remain consistent with hard work and honest living, it will get better. I was once in your shoes, though. I didn't bear this much responsibility as you do now, but I understand a bit of the weight that you carry, so I am encouraging you to not give up, no matter what. As for Chi-Chi's fees, you can write off the previous terms. Let's start with the new term, and don't ever stop her from coming to school on account of her fees again. Is that all right?" Edward had sat speechless. He can't remember when he received such counsel or kindness since his mother died. He stood up in gratitude and gave a bow to Mr. John, trying his best not allow the tears that were threatening to fall. But Mr. John understood and stood up to hug the admirable young man. When he needed help, nobody was forthcoming. He had vowed that if he ever met anyone who needed his help, like this young man, he won't close his door against such. He was glad and felt rather privileged to become a part of their story. That was how Edward overcame that particularly trying period. He had gotten half of the rent, and the landlord had extended the grace period for him, which had given him room to save up. Now in the present, as Edward sat there reminiscing about the toughest times they had endured, he didn't realize when he drifted off to sleep. The exhaustion catching up with him and the comfort of the sofa provided a moment of peace. Chi-Chi and Lily returned from their outing, laughing and chatting. They found him in that position, dozing on the sofa, his head resting against the armrest, a look of peace on his handsome face. Chi-Chi's heart ached as she watched her brother, a young man of 25, carrying burdens that many couldn't handle, even at 40. What is she even saying? Their own father couldn't. But Edward lifted that burden upon his shoulders at only 15 years and has not set it down since. He has never faltered nor backed out. They now live very comfortably. It may not be luxury like Lily had, but she was so grateful for what her brother brought to the table. Whatever Edward could afford was luxury for her and her sister. Their brother's sweat and blood was more luxury than any treasure in the whole world. He has carved out a place in the world for them to place their feet with his bare hands and grits. No education, no support system, just pure sweat and blood, and they will never forget. They will never take that little portion for granted. They will take it and turn it into the most beautiful place on earth for him, a place of honor and dignity. She is going to make him so proud that he will not be able to walk with his shoulders down that she has promised him in her heart. Determined to give him the little comfort she could now, Chi-Chi dropped the suya and yogurt she got for him on the table and went inside to get a blanket. Her thoughts filled with dreams of the future when she and Emily would start earning. They had promised themselves that they would make sure Edward could finally relax and live his life like any normal young man. Their father had abandoned them, but Edward had stepped up, and Chi-Chi's only prayer was for God to keep him strong and healthy. She imagined the day when they would sponsor his first holiday, allowing him to do something he truly enjoyed rather than just working to survive. Returning to the sitting room with the blanket, Chi-Chi was stopped in her tracks by the sight of Lily bending over Edward, almost drooling as she watched him sleep. The sight made her clear her throat loudly, causing Lily to squeak in surprise, waking Edward in the process. Chi-Chi felt miffed that her brother's nap had been cut short, but she kept her thoughts to herself, deciding to address it later. Lily would have some questions to answer. Edward woke up with a start, blinking at the two ladies standing before him. A warm smile spread across his face. Edward hugged the both of them, as was his custom before excusing himself to his room for a shower, feeling a bit more refreshed after his unexpected nap. Once the door to Edward's bedroom shut, Chi-Chi grabbed Lily's arm and dragged her into her own room. It was time for some serious conversation. "What was that about?" Chi-Chi asked, her eyes narrowing as she crossed her arms. Lily looked sheepish, trying to find the right words. "I was just watching him. He looked so peaceful, and I don't know, I am sorry. Didn't mean to wake him up," Lily said at last, when she couldn't find the appropriate explanation for her behavior. Chi-Chi sighed, softening a bit. She knew how much Lily cared for Edward, but this was something different, and she will have to approach it cautiously if she wanted to get the real answer out of Lily. "Whatever it is, you know you can tell me, right? I am not angry, so can you tell me what is going on?" Lily sat down on the bed, a sudden tiredness washing over her. It was true that Chi-Chi has been her best friend since they were kids, and they don't keep secrets from each other. Despite all her mom did to stop them from being friends, they had continued to be best friends, but she wasn't sure she could reveal this one secret. She had kept this to herself since she could remember, because she knows how fiercely protective Chi-Chi and Emily were of their brother. Her mom's actions didn't even help matters, but she couldn't deny that fact that she was frustrated about not being able to express her feelings to anyone, not to her mom, who would have raised the roof, not her brother who would frown upon her being in love with his best friend, not her best friend Chi-Chi, who she was sure would never agree, and definitely not Edward. In fact, Edward must never find out, and it is definitely because he must never find out that she will never tell Chi-Chi. She rather would have him love her as his little sister like he has been doing than have him look at her with pity, as a little girl, or worse, as one who isn't worthy of his love. She doesn't think she can survive that. So it's better she continued in her own solitary journey. She had let her guard down for a moment there, seeing how handsome and serene he looked while asleep. She couldn't control herself, and had nearly given away her secret. But now she doesn't know how to distract Chi-Chi from what she just witnessed. She knows how relentless her best friend can be when she smells something. An idea cropped up immediately, and she latched onto it like a lifeline. "There is nothing really going on. I was admiring him for his strength and love. You know, the way he works really hard to take care of you and Emily. Look at what he has achieved so far, and I felt sorry he had to carry all those on his shoulder all by himself. It shouldn't have been so difficult if my mom had been more forthcoming." "That was all," she said, shrugging, trying to be as casual as she can. Chi-Chi looked at her with narrowed eyes for a while before sitting down beside her. "If you say that is all, I promise." Lily quickly replied, glad that she escaped so easily. "It's all right because we can't afford any distractions, especially now," Chi-Chi said, looking like she believed what Lily just said, but she just decided to let the matter be for now. So she concluded with, "No more staring at him like that, okay?" "You scared me for a minute there." Lily laughed, a bit embarrassed. "Okay, no more staring." They moved on to other things, talking about their preparation for school and other things. 10 years later. 10 years had passed, and the lives of Edward and his sisters had transformed remarkably. The struggles of the past were now a distant memory, replaced by achievements and successes that filled them with pride. Emily, now a practicing surgeon, was making waves in the medical field with her groundbreaking research and meticulous approach in the operating room. Her senior colleagues were eager to have her as their protégé, recognizing her exceptional talent and dedication. However, Emily remained humble and cautious, aware of how quickly one misstep could ruin a career in the competitive world of medicine. She had recently received an offer from the federal government teaching hospital, a Grade 1 emergency center that promised extensive opportunities for growth and experience. Although the pay was not as high as other offers from the private sector, Edward had advised that she stay true to her initial motivation for becoming a surgeon, to help humanity to the best of her ability. He reminded her that money was no longer a concern for their family, as his factory was now thriving and providing a stable income. Convinced by his reasoning, Emily accepted the government offer, despite some in the private sector calling her foolish for turning down higher salaries. She didn't mind. She was committed to her purpose. Chi-Chi had grown into a talented architect, already building an impressive portfolio in a field known for its competitiveness. Her designs were innovative and inspired, reflecting her passion and creativity. She had made a name for herself, gaining respect and admiration from her peers and clients alike. Lily had found her calling as a nutritionist. After completing her studies, she became a nutrient specialist at a large food production company, a position that allowed her to apply her knowledge and skills to improve people's health and well-being. Her career was flourishing, and she found great satisfaction in her work. Meanwhile, Ugo had traveled abroad for further studies and had recently returned, bringing exciting news of his upcoming wedding. The families and friends were busy with preparations, eagerly anticipating the celebration of Ugo's new chapter in life. Edward, now 35, looked back on the years with a sense of fulfillment. His sacrifices had paved the way for his sister's success, and he could finally enjoy the fruits of his labor. The factory he had started was doing well, providing financial stability for the family and allowing him to live a more relaxed life. The weight he had carried for so long was no longer a burden, and he found joy in seeing his sisters thrive. Chi-Chi had organized a reunion sort of dinner for the 5 of them and insisted everyone must be present, including Ugo's fiancé, so she could get used to their small community. On the said evening, as they gathered for dinner, the air was filled with laughter and stories of the day. Chi-Chi, in her usual clownish ways, was entertaining everyone with stories of her adventure as a female in a male-dominated world. Everyone was caught up with stories of their childhood days. Even Ugo's fiancé, who had been skeptical at first, wasn't left out. They all made her feel welcome and free. Before the end of the dinner, she concluded was best friends with Emily already, because they made it feel like she had known them all her life. She understood them, how they had remained so close despite the years, and sometimes the distance that had gone by. Edward watched them with pride, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. The struggles of the past had shaped them into resilient, compassionate individuals who valued family and hard work. As they toasted to their bright futures, Edward knew that no matter what happens, they were going to be all right. Because in that moment, surrounded by the people he loved most, Edward felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had been worth every sacrifice. The future was theirs to shape, and he looked forward to the adventures and achievements that awaited them. At the wedding. The wedding reception was a grand affair, filled with joy, laughter, and the warmth of family and friends. Edward walked into the hall, his eyes scanning the room filled with unfamiliar faces. But the atmosphere was electric with celebration. Lily had done her best to avoid Edward since the reunion. She had deliberately kept her distance for the past 4 years, trying to suppress the emotions that is trying to swallow her up. But seeing him walk into the reception, looking more handsome than ever, all those suppressed feelings came rushing back, overwhelming her. Her heart raced, and she felt the urge to leave the room to regain her composure. Just as she turned to go, Edward spotted her and started walking towards her, a warm smile on his face. She quickly shook her head, trying to dislodge the thoughts and emotions threatening to betray her. The 4 years she didn't see him was a deliberate choice on her own end, because she'd hoped it would help her put away this stupid feeling she had developed for him since she was a teenager. But seeing him now, looking so effortlessly handsome and real, she felt a pang of frustration. Maybe he is selfish, she tried telling herself, but her heart wasn't listening. Her head, too, seemed to join the chorus, reminding her of the truth she was trying to ignore. As Edward approached, he was frequently stopped by familiar faces wanting to chat, but he kept his eyes on Lily, determined to reach her. Finally, he was able to escape and saw standing behind a pillar. He went to her, his eyes immediately filled with worry when he saw how agitated she looked, even though she was obviously trying to hide it. Lily extended her hand for a handshake, but Edward ignored it and pulled her into a hug. She stiffened, unable to trust herself to reciprocate. She forced a smile, standing still until he released her. Edward looked at her with concern etched on his face. "Are you okay? You look like you're having a headache," he said, reaching out to feel her forehead. Panic surged through Lily and she twirled away, stepping out of his reach. This left Edward more confused and worried. He made to follow her, but Emily, who saw what happened, intercepted him, holding him back. "Let Chi-Chi talk to her," Emily said to him. "Is something the matter?" Edward asked, his concern growing. He took a step forward, but Emily tightened her grip on his arm. "Leave it to Chi-Chi," she insisted. Edward reluctantly agreed, his mind a haze of confusion. He had kept his feelings to himself because at first he didn't even understand what was wrong with him. 4 years ago, when she had visited after her induction ceremony, he suddenly saw her in a different light. She was no longer just his little sister's friend. He felt ashamed at first, recalling how he had known her since she was born, even though he was only 7 years old at the time. But the feelings had grown, and now he couldn't deny their intensity. And he still didn't fully understand his feelings for Lily until the day of the reunion. It was then he knew that he was in real trouble. So seeing her so troubled at her brother's wedding was giving him concern, even though he feared his feelings may not be reciprocated. Meanwhile, Chi-Chi found Lily outside, leaning against a tree, tears streaming down her face. She approached her gently, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Lily, what's going on?" Chi-Chi asked softly. Lily wiped her tears, trying to compose herself. I can't handle it anymore, Chi-Chi. Seeing him again, after all this time, it's too much." Chi-Chi sighed, pulling Lily into a comforting hug. "I know it's hard, but you have to talk to him. You can't keep running away." "I don't know if I can," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "But wait, how do you know what and who I am talking about?" Lily asked suddenly, confused as she realized what Chi-Chi just said. Chi-Chi laughed and shook her head. "It is only the two of you who doesn't seem to know." "I don't understand," Lily said, still confused. "Well, I and Emily at least knows how you feel about our brother. We just left you to handle it whichever way you felt comfortable. We didn't want to meddle. But that day you caught me looking at him," Lily began. Chi-Chi laughed again. "I am sorry, Lily. I know this is not a time to laugh, but I knew for sure that day, had my suspicion previously, but that day I became sure, but you were not ready to talk about it, and I respected your decision." "I was scared you wouldn't approve," Lily said. "I didn't want to lose my best friend because I developed feelings for her big brother. That's why I couldn't tell you. Why won't I approve? It's not like I was his mother or something." "Oh, Chi-Chi Plulls, as if you don't know how protective you are of him," Lily interrupted, wiping her face carefully, feeling hope rise in her heart. "Well, that's normal. He still is the only parents we have. If we don't protect him, who will?" Chi-Chi replied flippantly. "But on a more serious note, Lily, you're stronger than you think, and if there is anyone who can take care of my brother and love him as he deserves to be loved, then it's you," Chi-Chi reassured her. "You have seen him at his worst. You know his journey and his struggles, and in spite of your mother's influence, your heart still beats for him. So you have our blessings. If you can win his heart, why not? You might as well become our official sister." Let me see how your mother will continue to object after then." They both laughed, Lily breathing out shakily as her fears were taken care of by Chi-Chi's kind words. "And Edward deserves to know how you feel." "You both do. At least tell him and see where it goes from there, instead of dying silently," Chi-Chi concluded mischievously, wiping the last traces of tears from Lily's eyes as she brought out her powder to repair the makeup. They went back inside, Lily now laughing happily now that her burden had been lifted halfway. She can now enjoy her brother's wedding to the fullest. As they returned to the reception, Edward stood by the door, his eyes filled with worry. When he saw Lily, his expression softened, and he took a tentative step forward. "Lily," he began, his voice gentle. Lily looked at him, her heart pounding. "Edward, please, can we talk for a minute?" "Sure," he replied, still worried but making up his mind to open up to her about his feelings. The two of them stepped aside, finding a quiet corner where they could speak without interruption. Edward looked at her, his eyes searching hers. "What is wrong?" he asked gently. "Did someone offend you?" "No," Lily said, shaking her head. "I was just feeling overwhelmed." "By what?" Edward said, coming closer to her. But Lily raised her hand and pushed him back a little. He was a little surprised and disappointed, but he respected her wish. Lily saw the disappointed look flash across his face, but she needed her space. She is going to say what she had kept in her heart for more than 10 years. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting, please." "Okay," Edward said, and waited for her to gather her thoughts. He will tell her what he has in mind when she was done. After about a minute or so, and she still couldn't say anything, Edward unable to stop himself as he gazed at her beautiful face, struggling to find the right words for whatever she was struggling to say. "I've missed you," he said softly. "I didn't realize how much until now." Lily took a deep breath, looking up at him suddenly. All her emotions poured out in that one look. But she needed to be sure so it will not be a case of misinterpretation. With her heart pounding in her chest, she kicked her suddenly dried lips and asked, "What do you mean by you missed me?" She waited, scared and hopeful at the same time. Edward took a step towards her and waited. When she didn't protest, he took her hand and said, "Lily Ifunanya Madu, I am in love with you. Have been for some time, but I waited because I needed you to become your own person, a woman with her own mind and voice. I didn't want to put a strain on your friendship with Chi-Chi." A strangled sound escaped from Lily, but she quickly covered her mouth with a hand, her eyes widening. What she has been silently dying for years has been hers all along. "Please don't play with me right now," she managed to choke out. "Do you mean what you just said?" Edward nodded, understanding dawning on him. "We've both been avoiding this for too long. I missed you too. But I didn't know how to handle these feelings," Lily began, but couldn't go on as her throat closed up with emotions they threatened to overwhelm her again, but this time it was joy and wonder and love. As they stood there, the air between them heavy with unspoken words, they both knew that this conversation would change everything, and for the first time in years, they were ready to face it together. They had spoken at length, each surprised at the other's depth of feelings. Edward's shock being more because he couldn't imagine her having that much love for him since her teens, and he was none the wiser. But he was glad. They were at a mutual place now. And from here, they will know how to navigate the mountains that stands before them. When they returned to the wedding hall, Lily, beaming with joy, made her way to her family's table, a bright smile on her face, feeling lighter than she had in years. But as soon as she sat down, she regretted it. Her mother leaned in and pinched her and in a whisper asked, "What were you and Edward talking about outside that took more than 2 hours?" she whispered, her voice a mix of irritation and curiosity. Lily rubbed the painful spot on her arm and replied quietly, "We were just catching up, Mom." "Catching up to what, eh?" Monica retorted, her eyes narrowing. "Was it not a few weeks ago that you people had that ridiculous reunion? Was that not enough catching up for you too?" "But Mommy—" "Shut up, let me finish," her mother snapped, raising her hand to silence her. Lily bit her tongue, praying for her father to return from wherever he had gone. She could feel her frustration building but tried to keep her composure. Monica leaned closer, her voice low and stern. Listen, in case you don't know, your father is already talking with Senator Humphrey because his son has declared an interest in you. What? Lily exclaimed loudly, drawing the attention of the nearby guests. Realizing she had drawn attention, she quickly lowered her voice but couldn't hide her shock and anger. Her mind raced with this unexpected revelation. She turned to face her mother, her pent-up anger boiling to the surface, but before she could say anything, her father approached, having rushed over from a conversation with some dignitaries. What is going on here? Her father asked, looking between his wife and daughter with concern. Lily turned to her father, her face flushed with anger and disbelief, forgetting for a moment that they were in the middle of a wedding. What did I just hear Mom say now? She demanded, her voice sharp with hurt and frustration. What did she say? And keep your voice down, young lady, he warned as Lily made to reply. What did I just hear about Senator Humphrey and his son? She asked, her voice low but tensed. Her father sighed, glancing warily at the people around them before leaning in to speak more privately. Lily, calm down, he began softly, trying to soothe her. Understanding where her anger was coming from, he decided to tread carefully. We were going to talk to you about this later, but the senator's son has showing interest. Doesn't mean you are married already, though we think it is a good match. A good match? Lily echoed, interrupting her father, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. What about what I want? Did anyone think to ask me how I feel about this? Her father looked uncomfortable, shifting on his feet. I know, that is why I said, you are not married yet. We just thought. You thought wrong, Lily interrupted, her voice low but firm. I won't be part of some arrangement without my consent, and I certainly won't be bartered away like some kind of prize. Monica's face hardened, her voice hissing with frustration. You have to think about what's best for you, for all of us. This is a good opportunity. For who, Mom? For you and Dad? Or for me? Lily shot back, her eyes welling up with tears of frustration. She felt cornered, caught between her own desires and her parents' expectations. She lived most of her life to please her mother, but on this one, she will not compromise. She was only able to remain friends with Chi-Chi because she had fought unrelentingly until her mother gave up. And if she is going to make anything meaningful with Edward, she would have to fight even harder, seeing that her father is in on it too. The tension at the table was thick, and a few guests began to whisper among themselves, sensing the discord. Just then, Chi-Chi walked over, sensing the tension in the air. Lily, I wanted to ask you something, Chi-Chi asked, trying to defuse the situation with a calm smile. She had noticed the tensed conversation and thought she could distract Lily by asking her a random thing. But Lily, shaking with anger, stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Nothing, she muttered, pushing past Chi-Chi. Nothing at all. She stormed out of the hall, needing to clear her head, leaving her parents staring after her, stunned and unsure of what to do next. Edward's eyes had been following Lily ever since Chi-Chi had gone over to her table. He noticed the tense exchange with her parents, the way Lily's face twisted with anger, and her abrupt departure from the hall. His worry deepened as he saw her parents' frustrated expressions. Something was clearly very wrong. Meanwhile, Ugo, oblivious to the brewing drama, was dancing with his bride, enjoying the festivities. He was lost in the joy of the moment, unaware of the tension that had just unfolded. Without a second thought, Edward slipped away from the crowd and hurried after Lily. He caught up with her just as she was about to enter the ladies' room. What's the matter? He asked softly, his voice filled with concern as he gently lifted her chin to meet his gaze. The moment Lily saw Edward's worried expression, all the emotions she had been holding back came rushing to the surface. Tears began to pour from her eyes uncontrollably, as if a dam had burst inside her. She sobbed openly, not caring who might see or what they might think. Without a word, Edward wrapped his arms around her, holding her close as she cried into his chest. He rested his chin gently on the top of her head, whispering soothing words, trying to calm her down. He stroked her back gently, giving her the space to let it all out while providing the comfort she desperately needed. After what felt like an eternity, Lily's sobs began to subside. She slowly lifted her head from Edward's chest, her face streaked with tears. Edward took out a handkerchief and carefully dabbed at her cheeks, his movements slow and tender, as if he were handling something fragile. He then turned to lead her to a chair nearby where they could sit and talk, but Lily hesitated, biting her lip and glancing away, embarrassed. "I need to repair my makeup," she said softly, avoiding his eyes. Edward chuckled softly, a small smile playing on his lips. "All right," he replied gently, understanding her need to compose herself, "but I'll wait here until you come out." Lily nodded shyly, feeling embarrassed and... What's that emotion behind the embarrassment? Happy? How can someone be embarrassed and happy at the same time? Lily pondered absently as she quickly ducked into the ladies' room. She splashed some water on her face, took a deep breath, and tried to calm her racing heart. When she finally gathered enough courage to step out after repairing her makeup, she glanced around, her heart sinking momentarily when she didn't see Edward where he had promised to stand. And for some reason, panic began to bubble up inside her, but then she noticed him a few steps away, talking with Ugo, who had left the dance floor to join him. Ugo spotted her first, his face lighting up with relief. "Ah, here she is!" he exclaimed, his voice warm but tinged with worry. "What happened?" he asked, his eyes scanning her face. "I was looking for you to dance, but Mom said she didn't know where you ran off to." Lily managed a small smile, though her heart was still racing. "Is that why you left your bride and came out here?" she asked incredulously. Ugo laughed softly, though his concern was still evident. No, he replied, waving off her question. "She went to change her outfit." "But that's all the more reason why you shouldn't be out here." Lily continued to scold, feigning annoyance so she could distract him from asking her why she ran like their mother had reported. "We have guests inside. Come back in, and let's enjoy the rest of the night," she said, managing to laugh lightheartedly. Lily hesitated for a moment as Ugo turned to go back inside, glancing at Edward, her eyes silently pleading for understanding. She didn't want to bring her personal troubles into Ugo's special day, and she could see that Edward understood. He gave her a reassuring nod, silently telling her that whatever was bothering her could be sorted out later. "Go on," Edward encouraged softly. "We'll talk later." Relieved, Lily nodded and took a deep breath, composing herself. "All right," she agreed. "Let's go back in. I'll come dance with you. Just be ready, because I am going to steal all the attention." As the siblings turned to head back into the hall, Ugo wrapped an arm around Lily's shoulders, squeezing her affectionately. They laughed together, the tension slowly easing away. Edward followed them inside, a small smile on his lips, feeling a sense of warmth as he watched them. He couldn't help but think about how lucky he was to have found himself in this strange but wonderful family dynamic. Despite all the challenges and the tension, there was a bond here, a connection that went beyond words. And as he walked behind them, Edward realized that whatever the future held, he was ready to face it, as long as he had people like Lily, Ugo, and his sisters by his side. Whatever made her cry like that, they will sort out later. He didn't want them disrupting his friend's wedding. As the siblings went inside laughing, Edward walked behind them smiling, thinking how lucky he was. After the wedding, everyone had been too tired to do much else except rest. Edward had driven Lily home after dropping off his sisters, but he didn't ask her about the incidents earlier in the day because he felt there was enough time. He just wanted to bask in the euphoria of knowing that Lily was his now. Their relationship had blossomed beautifully from there, and every day, Lily felt grateful that she had waited, because if this was what she in for, then she would have gladly waited another decade. She knew Edward was a good guy, seeing how much he loved and takes care of his sisters, but she never imagined how romantic he would be as a lover. He was all she dreamed, and then some. his sisters being the icing on the cake. They had seamlessly transited from considering her as their friend to treating her almost like a new wife. Though they were still friends, but there was a refreshing way they treated her now, almost as if they respected her. She couldn't explain exactly what it was, but she couldn't be happier than this, she always thought to herself. But 2 months after the wedding, Lily was packing up to move into her own apartment. Her mother, Monica, had given her an ultimatum: either accept the senator's son or someone of equal status as her husband, or leave the house. There can never be two captains in a ship, Monica had declared, her tone brooking no argument. Lily had chosen the latter option without hesitation. The moment she stormed out of that confrontation, she had gone straight to a real estate agent and begun searching for a new place to live. Lily hadn't bothered waiting for her father's input. He was usually caught between trying to keep the peace and appeasing Monica's ever-increasing ambitions. Moreover, she hadn't told Edward about the ultimatum either. She knew he would try to convince her to make peace with her parents, arguing that family ties were important and that understanding and patience could bridge the gap. But Lily was done with patience. She had kept quiet about what had transpired at Ugo's wedding, how her parents' machinations nearly caused a scene. She had waited too long, more than a decade, to have Edward. Now she couldn't risk losing him, not after they had finally been together for just a couple of weeks. No, she decided, she would wait for a better time to explain everything to him. The final straw had come when her mother overheard a conversation between her and Edward one evening. Lily had been laughing, her voice light and filled with joy, as she spoke to Edward on the phone, not realizing that Monica had returned early from her women's meeting. Without warning, Monica had barged into her room, snatched the phone out of her hand, and demanded to know who she was speaking to with such intimacy. The moment she realized it was Edward, Monica exploded, her voice ringing through the house. "How can my own daughter lower herself to the level of such a boy?" Monica screamed, her face flushed with anger. "What does he have to offer you?" "Nothing." "Mom, we love each other," Lily had tried to explain, her voice steady but pleading. "Love? Did you say love?" Monica had sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. "What do you know about love?" Her whole body shook with rage, her eyes blazing as she glared at her daughter. "Answer me." Lily took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "But Mom, Edward's mother was once your best friend. Why have you suddenly started treating them like they're beneath us? If their mom was still alive, would you be acting this way?" "Shut your mouth before I shut it for you," Monica screamed, her voice quaking with fury. "I was friends with their mother when she met my standards, but we are way past them now. Don't you ever compare them to us again. Do you know the kind of menial and dirty jobs that boy has done just to put food on their table? And you expect me to consider such a person as my son-in-law? Are you mad? After all the expensive schools and coaching I gave you, you want to throw it all away because of what? Some silly notion of love? It will not happen, not while I am alive. Do you hear me?" Monica turned to leave, her disgust palpable, not waiting for her daughter to respond. But Lily had had enough. Her mother's words cut deep, but they also ignited a fire within her. As Monica moved to leave the room, Lily spoke, her voice low and menacing, yet full of conviction. "Have you ever considered that we could have been in Edward's shoes? How would you feel if people treated us the way you're treating them? Edward might have done dirty and menial jobs, as you call tea,